These two laptops are built into the same family of aluminium body. They were both sold new during 2020 and 2021, with prices going up into the thousands for both. They both run macOS Sonoma. Their logic boards are constructed entirely differently though. One has a low power SoC which doesn't even require a fan to cool, and the other has several processing chips delegated into different areas of the board with two fans spinning almost constantly to keep the high power components cool. I'm talking, of course, about the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, the last of the Intels, and the 2020 MacBook Air, the first of the Apple Silicons. Let's compare the two. The 2019 MacBook Pro came with several configuration options when it was new. The CPU was either an Intel i7 or i9, the former with 6 cores, the latter with 8. Clock speeds on the top spec i9 were 2.4 GHz at base, with a boost of 5 GHz. The M1 MacBook Air of 2020 came with, the M1 processor. The M1 has 8 cores, 4 power ones, and 4 efficiency, to save power doing more basic tasks. There are no official clock speeds documented online, but at the end of the day, the M1 uses an entirely different architecture to Intel. Judging based on clock speeds would be a pretty unreliable comparison. Instead, we'll look at several benchmarks and some real-world performance. We've been over this before on my channel, but in Geekbench 6, the i9 2019 16-inch scores 1,362 single-core and 6,406 multi-core. These are by no means rookie numbers. In fact, these two scores are among the highest on any Intel Mac ever made. How does M1 fare against it though? Well, it scores 2,334 single-core and 8,313 multi-core. There's a considerable distance between the two machines in CPU benchmark performance then. We'll look at some more comparisons later, but let's briefly look at graphics performance. In the Apple Store, the 16-inch MacBook Pro was advertised as the high-power graphics version for professionals. The two laptops were sold at the same time, with the M1 Air starting at $999 and the 16-inch Pro an eye-watering $2,399. The 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro was well known for having some pretty beefy GPUs on board. There were 4 variants available, all by AMD. The 5300M, the 5500M, 4GB or 8GB, and the 5600M, with 8GB of AMD's faster HBM2 video memory. The MacBook Air line has never been well known for particularly impressive GPU performance. As far as Intel MacBook Airs went, the 2011 and onwards ones only had GPUs integrated into the CPU of the machine. Did M1 change anything? Well, yes, sort of. The M1 chip is an SoC, like I mentioned, with graphics essentially integrated into the processor like previous Intel MacBooks. Apple's own GPUs are surprisingly capable considering their low power draw though. This chart shows the performance of the 2019 16-inch versus the M1 in Geekbench 5's OpenCL Compute benchmark. The benchmark is designed to test graphics performance in a range of tasks, for example image and video processing. As you can see, the 16-inch is way out ahead here. What this means for you in the real world is that certain GPU-intensive tasks, such as editing high-quality video on complex timelines, 3D rendering, and even gaming, will be a lot better suited to the 2019 16-inch machine. It's worth noting though, GPU performance is not something that everyone will be able to benefit from. Yes, the dedicated card on the 16-inch 2019 is still very capable, but look at how much more efficient the M1 is. A longer battery life is something that everyone can benefit from. Speaking of battery life, there's no competition. The Intel 16-inch is rated for 11 hours movie playback. The M1 Air, 18 hours. That's a huge difference. Let me try and put that into perspective though. At university, with the 2019 16-inch, I would have had to charge my MacBook up to at least 80% battery in the morning or overnight to get through my 2 to 3 lectures of each day, just taking notes and using some statistic apps like SPSS. With the 2020 Air, I can sometimes get through 3 entire days of lectures without a charge. What's more, the battery on the M1 Air has just under half the capacity of the 2019 16-inch, with 49.9 watt-hours. Big deal. Seriously. Most 2019 16-inch machines have 16GB of RAM. This is DDR4 2666 MHz. Their maximum capacity is 64GB though. The 2020 M1 Air came with 8 or 16GB. You'll see the 8GB variants a lot more often though, as they have a notably lower price. This is 4266 MHz DDR4. If you're using these things for video editing or other fairly high power professional endeavours, a lot of short-term memory is going to be a big plus and help you get work done faster. You may wish to go for a 64GB 2019 if you see a big RAM capacity as super important, but just remember you're sacrificing a lot of the benefits of an M1 chip. Bear in mind, by the way, that the M3 Max MacBooks can double this and be configured with up to 128GB. Although pricey, I consider this a far better buy than paying likely over $1,000 for an Intel machine that will likely be unsupported in the newest OS come 2025 and onwards. Okay, here's something the 2019 16-inch has the M1 beaten on easily. Display. Not only is the 3072 by 1920 16-inch display magnificent and noticeably bigger than the 13-inch, it's brighter too. The 13-inch Air's screen has a resolution of 2560 by 1600. The peak brightness on it is 400 nits, compared to 500 on the 2019. I say this every time I talk about this computer on screen, but it truly is one of the better screens available on a laptop even these days. Remember, it's getting on for 5 years old already. Let me give you some food for thought though. I have always preferred the bigger laptops. I wish the 17-inch MacBooks were around still and would buy one if they came back. I currently use this M1 Air with a 13-inch screen every day though. It's just the better laptop compared to the 16-inch from 2019. I'm aware the 2021 14 and 16-inch machines are bigger and more powerful to boot, but I just don't have the money to spend on one of those right now. Given the choice between the two, I implore you, don't sacrifice everything we've just talked about for a 3-inch bigger screen. Alright, let's talk about something that's not mentioned in the spec list of these machines, but will still make a huge difference when you compare them. Man alive, if this isn't the elephant in the room. Thermal performance on the Intel and M1 chips couldn't be further apart. You'll find increasingly that the Intel machine, especially on the i9 variants, will start to heat up when you open multiple apps. Editing video, for example, will really cause the fans to ramp up. Oh, and you can forget using it on a soft surface. Never, ever use the 2019 in bed or on a cushion. I wouldn't even suggest using the laptop on your lap. Top. In stark contrast to what I just said, the M1 MacBook Air doesn't even come with a fan. And it's safe to say it very rarely has a need for one. I'm sure you're aware of that already, but seriously, that's one cool computer, as it were. Alright, that's about it for today. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who tuned in for my last video and is a new subscriber. The fact that almost 1,000 people liked the video in a space of a few days means a hell of a lot to me. Seriously. I'll continue to read and respond to all the comments, some of which have been really sweet. Alright, see you next week, and of course, subscribe for more. My Patreon costs $3.99 if you do fancy contributing financially to the channel, but watching and leaving a like is enough for me.